Hello, everyone. I would first like to start off by saying thank you so much for participating in our educational lecture series. Your participation by watching the video and completing the quizzes is very meaningful because it helps to spread the knowledge of ABA and related principles. It empowers you as a caregiver with effective strategies to teach skills and manage behavior, and it also supports future funding by demonstrating the program's impact. Together, we are building confident caregivers, supported families, and brighter futures. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to welcome you to the first video in our educational lecture series. Today's video is titled Introduction to ABA, which stands for Applied Behavioral Analysis. Whether you're completely new to the field or looking to refresh your understanding, this video is designed to provide a clear and practical overview of what ABA is, how it works, and why it's such an important tool in behavior science and education. Here's a quick look at what we'll be covering today. Number 1, what is behavior analysis in ABA? Number 2, the ABCs of behavior. Number 3, what are reinforcers and how do we identify them? Number 4, why behavior change takes time. Let's first start off by going over what behavior analysis is. Behavior analysis is the science of behavior. It involves understanding how behavior is learned and maintained through environmental interactions. The environment refers to everything outside of us that can be influenced by our behavior. This includes physical surroundings, social situations, people, objects, sounds, lights, and even events. Basically anything that can be seen, heard, touched, smelled, or experienced. What makes it unique is its reliance on observable, measurable behavior and a strong foundation in research. Behavior analysis is split into two main areas: basic research, which discovers principles, and applied behavior analysis, or ABA, which uses those principles to solve real-world problems. But what is ABA therapy specifically? ABA therapy uses what we know about how people learn and behave and apply it to others. The goal is simple: to help your child learn skills that improve their quality of life. That includes increasing helpful behaviors such as talking, fine motor skills, and identification following a schedule. It also helps to decrease behaviors that might get in the way of learning or relationships, which could be aggression, screaming, property destruction, just to name a few. Let's take a closer look at some key ideas that form the foundation of behavior analysis. These ideas guide how we approach understanding and changing behavior. There are three main ones we will discuss. The first one we will discuss is behavior is learned. This means that behavior is not random or purely instinctual. It is the result of learning through interactions with the environment. From infancy to adulthood, we learn which behaviors are effective based on consequences. For example, a child who receives praise for saying please is more likely to repeat that behavior in the future. But even problematic behaviors such as tantrums, aggression, or avoidance are learned. They serve a function for the individual, usually to gain or escape something. The second one we will discuss is behavior is lawful. This might sound surprising, but behavior doesn't occur out of nowhere. It follows predictable patterns. That means when we observe carefully and collect data, we can often identify clear relationships between environmental events and specific behaviors. For instance, if a student always acts out when given a math worksheet and that behavior results in them getting out of work, we can predict that similar patterns will happen again. This predictability allows us to make changes with confidence. The third one we will discuss is behavior can be changed by modifying the environment. Now here's where the power of behavior analysis really shines. If we identify what triggers and reinforces a behavior, we can change the environment to shape the behavior in more desirable direction. This means introducing positive reinforcement for appropriate behaviors, reducing triggers for challenging behaviors, or teaching new functional skills. And because this approach is grounded in data and observation, it's not guesswork. We monitor the effects of our changes and adjust strategies as needed. There are 3 key terms we use in ABA and ones you will hear throughout this lecture series. Learning, which just means gaining new skills and a change in behavior due to experience. This can include talking, waiting, or brushing teeth. Reinforcement, which increases behaviors we want to see more often. An example of this is giving a child screen time after they clean up their toys, which may increase the likelihood that they will clean up their toys more often. And punishment, which decreases behaviors. An example of this could be a reprimand. I emphasize could because you will hear later in the series that a reprimand could also be a reinforcer for a child, but we will get more into that later in the video. Overall, in ABA, we focus more on teaching and reinforcing behavior rather than punishing, because punishment doesn't teach a child what to do instead. Instead of punishment, we should be teaching the tools children need to succeed. By using reinforcement, we build trust, motivation, and confidence in your child, which is more effective long term. But overall, we want to help children feel safe, understood, and very capable. Behavior analysis isn't just about reacting to challenging behavior after it happens, it's about being proactive. That means we work to prevent behaviors in the first place by setting individuals up for success. The first way to do this is by meeting needs before they escalate. Often, challenging behavior is a form of communication. If a child is hungry, tired, overwhelmed, or seeking attention, we can prevent escalation by addressing those needs early on. Teaching new skills. Rather than just trying to stop challenging behavior, we teach appropriate functional alternatives in its place. For example, if a child hits when they want a toy, we teach them to ask for a turn. This gives them a better way to meet their needs. Making the environment work for your child. This could mean changing routines, reducing noise, providing visual supports, or adjusting expectations. The goal is to design environments that promote success rather than frustration. By focusing on prevention and skill building, ABA empowers individuals to thrive, not just manage behavior. Let's discuss more about how we can make the environment work for your child. Sometimes the most effective strategies for reducing challenging behavior aren't as dramatic as they seem. They're actually quite simple. It's just how we set things up. Let's break this down. Asking for things. How we ask for things matters. A request given calmly with some wait time is much more likely to be followed than one that is rushed or unclear. The way we organize the environment can reduce frustration. For example, if a child has trouble focusing, we might remove extra materials or arrange items in a more consistent way. Eliminate distractions or temptations. This could be putting away preferred toys during non-play times, which can prevent power struggles before they begin. Clear directions and visual support helps people to understand what's expected. Think picture schedules, step-by-step instructions, or simple rules posted visually. And you want to know what's most powerful of them all? Consistent, predictable routines. When children know what's coming next, they can feel more in control and less likely to act out. So remember, we don't always need to wait for challenging behavior to occur. By adjusting our approach and environment proactively, we can make positive behavior more likely from the start. So far, we've talked about how powerful it can be to make small, thoughtful changes to the environment. Things like giving clear directions, removing distractions, or using visuals. These strategies can go a long way in preventing challenging behavior and setting your child up for success. But to truly understand and support behavior change, we need to look a little deeper at why behavior happens in the first place. That's where the ABCs of behavior come in. One of the tools to understand behavior is the ABCs. ABC stands for antecedent, behavior, and consequence. A is for antecedent, what happens right before the behavior. B is for the behavior itself, what the person did. And C is for consequence, what happens after the behavior. We write behaviors in this very clear, specific way so we can understand patterns and know what to change. A good example of this is when you are driving to a red light. The antecedent would be the red light, the behavior would be you pressing on the brake, and the consequence could be avoiding a ticket or accident. Similarly, let's say you take the iPad from your child. They scream and then get it back. The antecedent would be you taking the iPad, the behavior would be screaming, and the consequence would be the child getting the iPad back. When we understand the ABCs, we can figure out what your child is trying to tell us with their behavior. Once we know what's happening before and after, we can make changes that can help. Now that we've explored the ABCs of behavior, the antecedent, behavior, and consequence, we can start to answer one of the more important questions in behavior analysis. Why is this behavior happening? By identifying the function of a behavior, whether it's to get attention, escape a task, access to a preferred item, or meet a sensory need, we gain powerful insight. But here's the key. Once we know the function, we don't just focus on stopping the challenging behavior, we focus on replacing it with a new appropriate behavior that serves the same purpose. This is what we call a functional replacement behavior, which is teaching a new skill that meets the same need in a more acceptable way. For example, if a child can't get something, they often show us through behavior. So instead of saying, stop doing that, teach them what to do instead. That might mean teaching them to ask for help and follow instructions, or learning to wait or staying calm when something unexpected happens. We call this teaching replacement behaviors because we're replacing the challenging behavior, not just trying to stop it. Now that we've recognized the importance of teaching functional replacement behaviors, we can focus on helping individuals meet their needs in a more positive and appropriate way without relying on the challenging behavior. But here's the thing. Just teaching the new behavior isn't enough. We have to make sure the new behavior actually works for the learner, and that's where the reinforcement comes in. If we want the new positive behavior to stick and to become your child's go-to choice, it needs to be followed by something meaningful, something rewarding. That means we have to find the right reinforcers for each individual. But just like how you probably wouldn't go to work if you didn't get paid, your child may not want to work without any reinforcement either, which is why reinforcement is super important. Reinforcers are the things that your child enjoys and is motivated to work for. You can find out what these things are just by observing what they naturally choose to play with or return to over and over again. We can even keep track of how long they play with certain items or how often they go back to them. Once we know what they like, we can use those favorite items to help encourage learning and positive behavior. Now let's talk about the difference between natural and contrived reinforcers. A natural reinforcer is something that happens as a direct result of a behavior and is already built into the situation or routine. For example, if a child is hungry and they ask for food, the natural reinforcer is that they get to eat. No one had to add anything extra. The reinforcement is a part of the outcome. But on the other hand, a contrived reinforcer is something we add on purpose to encourage a behavior. This might be something like giving a child a sticker for saying please. The sticker doesn't naturally follow from the behavior. We arrange it to increase the likelihood that the child will use polite language again. Both types of reinforcement are useful because natural reinforcers help build independence and real-world skills, while contrived reinforcers can be great for teaching new behaviors or shaping specific skills. We often start with contrived rewards to teach new skills, but over time, we shift to natural ones that make sense in real life. Now that we understand what reinforcement is, how to identify reinforcers, and how it helps encourage positive behavior, there's one really common question that people ask. Isn't that just bribery? It's a fair concern, but on the surface, reinforcement and bribery can look very similar. They both involve giving something that the child wants, but the difference is critical, and it all comes down to timing and intention. Bribery usually happens in the moment of challenging behavior. For example, we're trying to stop the chaos, so we offer a reward. The problem is, this actually teaches the child that acting out gets them what they want. For example, Johnny, stop running and I'll give you a Skittle. This is a clear example of bribery because Johnny was already engaging in the challenging behavior when he was offered a reward. In contrast, reinforcement is planned. It happens after the appropriate behavior, and it increases the chances that good behavior will happen again. It's not reactive, it's proactive. An example of this would be, first finish your math, then you can have iPad time. This is an example of reinforcement because the expectation was put in place before any challenging behavior ever occurred. The key difference here is timing and intent. With reinforcement, we're building new, lasting habits. With bribery, we're unintentionally rewarding the wrong thing. So now, when you hear someone say, "That sounds like a bribe," you can confidently explain the difference. It works, and it encourages positive behavior. Finding the right reinforcers is a big step, as it helps us to motivate learning and makes new positive behaviors more likely to stick. But is it important to remember, even with the right tools in place, behavior change doesn't happen overnight. Just like learning any new skill, whether it's riding a bike, speaking a new language, or playing an instrument, it takes practice, patience, and consistency. Challenging behaviors didn't develop in a day, and they won't disappear in a day either. Similarly, you can't become Elton John or Mozart overnight. You have to start with a few notes to build up your skill. Progress can be slow, but every small step forward is meaningful. And over time, with the right support, we can see real lasting change. Overall, ABA is about supporting your child's growth with patience, care, and proven strategies. It takes time, but with consistency and teamwork, you'll see progress. Thank you for watching the first video in the educational lecture series. We look forward to hearing about all the things you have learned at your next appointment. Remember, take the quiz. See you later.